Who is this guy? That's what everyone at Maya's wedding whispered when the church doors slammed open. There stood Damien Mancini, 6 feet of Italian danger in a custom three-piece suit, his steel-gray eyes fixed on the bride. The same man she'd walked away from 6 months ago. The same man she swore she'd never see again. Her Mafia boss? And he'd just crashed her wedding with one simple message. This wedding is over. But to understand why Damien Mancini would risk everything to stop Maya from marrying another man, we need to go back to where it all began. 3 years earlier, in the shadows of his empire. Maya Rodriguez never imagined she'd work for the Mafia. But when you're drowning in student debt, and your mother needs surgery you can't afford, you don't ask too many questions about the job posting that offers triple the normal salary for executive assistant to private businessman. Her first day at Mancini Enterprises, she learned the truth. The office was in a renovated warehouse in the industrial district, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows that seemed designed to show everyone outside that the people inside had nothing to hide. But Maya quickly realized that the legitimate import-export business on the books was just the surface. Damien Mancini ran one of the 5 families that controlled the city's underworld, and she was about to become his right hand. Miss Rodriguez. His voice cut through her nervous thoughts as she stood in his office doorway. Come in. Close the door. Damien sat behind a massive mahogany desk, reviewing documents with the focus of a surgeon. He didn't look up immediately, and Maya used those few seconds to study him. He was younger than she expected, maybe 35, with dark hair styled perfectly, a jawline that could cut glass, and an air of absolute authority that made the room feel smaller. When he finally raised his eyes to meet hers, Maya felt her breath catch. Gray eyes, cold as winter steel, assessed her with unnerving intensity. You know what I do, he said. It wasn't a question. Maya nodded. I figured it out. And you're still here. I need this job. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe, or curiosity. Your mother's medical bills. Breast cancer, stage 3. You have a younger brother in community college who you're also supporting. Your father passed away when you were 16. Maya's stomach dropped. He'd investigated her. Thoroughly. I protect my investments, Miss Rodriguez. That includes my employees. If you work for me, you'll be compensated generously. Your mother will receive the best treatment available. Your brother's tuition will be covered. In exchange, I require 3 things: loyalty, discretion, and competence. And if I fail, you won't. He leaned back in his chair. I don't make hiring mistakes. Your background check was flawless. Your references from your previous jobs paint a picture of someone intelligent, organized, and trustworthy. You graduated top of your class despite working 3 jobs. You're exactly what I need. Which is someone who can keep my legitimate business running while I handle other matters. Someone who can manage my schedule, my appointments, my correspondence. Someone who knows when to speak and when to remain silent. He paused. Someone who won't fall apart when things get complicated. Maya straightened her shoulders. I won't fall apart. Good. Because in this world, weakness gets you killed. Those first 6 months were a masterclass in survival. Maya learned to read Damien's moods from the set of his shoulders. She learned which calls to put through immediately and which to deflect. She learned the names and faces of every major player in the city's underworld, the allies, the rivals, the ones who smiled to your face while sharpening knives behind your back. She also learned that Damien Mancini was far more complicated than the cold crime boss he presented to the world. He donated anonymously to children's hospitals. He had a weakness for old Italian films and would sometimes watch them in his office late at night when he thought everyone had gone home. He visited his elderly grandmother every Sunday without fail, bringing her fresh flowers and sitting with her for hours. And he protected his people with a fierce, unwavering loyalty that Maya had never seen before. When one of the warehouse workers was targeted by a rival family, Damien personally ensured the man's family was moved to a safe house. When Maya's brother got into trouble with some loan sharks, Damien made one phone call and the debt disappeared. Not added to Maya's obligations, just gone. "Why did you do that?" Maya asked him after her brother called her, crying with relief. Damien didn't look up from his paperwork. "You work for me. That makes your family my responsibility. I didn't ask you to. I don't need you distracted by family problems. Consider it an investment in productivity." But there was something in his voice that suggested it was more than that. Maya began staying later at the office, not because Damien demanded it, but because she found herself drawn into his world. She'd bring him coffee at midnight when he was buried in negotiations. He'd order dinner for both of them when she worked through lunch to finish a project. They developed a rhythm, an unspoken partnership that went beyond typical boss-employee dynamics. "You disagree with me," Damien said one evening, studying her expression during a meeting with his advisors. Maya hesitated. Everyone else in the room went silent. "You didn't contradict Damien Mancini." "I think there's a better approach," she said carefully. "Explain." And she did. She laid out an alternative strategy that would achieve the same goal with less risk and fewer casualties. The room stayed silent as Damien considered her words, his expression unreadable. "We'll do it your way," he finally said. From that moment, everything changed. Damien began consulting her on decisions, valuing her perspective. She became more than his assistant. She became his advisor, his confidant, the one person who could speak truth to power without fear. But with that closeness came danger. Because Maya was beginning to see past the armor Damien wore. She saw the loneliness in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. The weight of responsibility that bent his shoulders late at night. The humanity he tried so hard to hide beneath layers of cold control. And worse, she was beginning to care. The first time she realized she was falling for him, they were in his office reviewing contracts at 2 a.m. Damien had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, and Maya found herself distracted by the strength in his forearms, the elegant movement of his hands as he signed documents. "You're staring," he said without looking up. Maya's cheeks burned. "Sorry. Tired. Go home, Maya. This can wait." It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his voice, rough, intimate, sent electricity down her spine. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice came out softer than intended. Damien finally looked up, and for a moment, something passed between them. Something dangerous and electric that made Maya's heart race. Then he looked away, jaw tightening. "Go home," he repeated, his voice colder now. "That's an order." Maya left, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Damien had felt it too. That spark, that pull, and that he was fighting it just as hard as she was. Because in his world, caring about someone was a liability. Love was a weakness that enemies could exploit. And Damien Mancini had too many enemies to risk having a weakness. 18 months later. The night everything changed started like any other. Maya was organizing files in the outer office when she heard the shouting. Damien's voice, raised in anger, a rare occurrence that immediately set her on edge. She moved to the door just as it flew open. A man she didn't recognize stormed out, face red with rage, followed by 2 of Damien's security team who escorted him firmly toward the elevator. "Mr. Mancini?" Maya stepped into his office cautiously. Damien stood by the window, his back to her, hands clenched into fists at his sides. Even from across the room, she could feel the fury radiating off him. "Cancel my meetings for the rest of the day," he said, voice tightly controlled. "What happened?" "It's handled." But it wasn't. Over the next week, Maya pieced together the situation through careful observation and overheard conversations. The man who'd stormed out, Marco Vitale, was a rival family member who'd proposed an alliance through marriage. He wanted Damien to marry his daughter, uniting their territories. Damien had refused, violently, from what Maya heard. The refusal created tension throughout the underworld. Alliances like that were how families maintained peace. Personal preferences didn't matter. You married for power, for territory, for strategy. But Damien had said no. "You're being reckless," his second-in-command Vincent argued during a meeting Maya was transcribing. "The Vitale alliance makes strategic sense." "I'm not marrying Isabella Vitale," Damien said flatly. "Then who will you marry?" "You're 37, Damien. The families are starting to question your commitment. They want stability, continuity. They want to know you'll produce an heir." "My personal life is not up for negotiation." "In our world, everything is negotiable." Damien's fist slammed on the desk. "Get out." After Vincent left, Maya stayed, gathering her notes slowly. Damien sat with his head in his hands, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "Why did you say no?" The question escaped before Maya could stop it. Damien looked up, and for once, his carefully maintained mask slipped. "Because I can't marry someone I don't love." The admission hung in the air between them. "Love is a luxury in your position," Maya said softly. "Then maybe I'm tired of living without luxuries." His eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made Maya's breath catch. "Maya." Whatever he was about to say was interrupted by his phone ringing. The moment shattered. Damien answered the call, his professional mask sliding back into place, and Maya fled to her office before she did something foolish. Like admit she was falling for a man she could never have. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Marco Vitale didn't take rejection well. He decided to send a message by targeting the thing Damien valued most: his family. Maya was working late when Damien burst into the office, phone pressed to his ear, his face ashen. "Where?" he demanded. "How many?" "I'm on my way." He ended the call and grabbed his jacket. "Lock down the office. Don't leave until Vincent comes to get you." "What's happening?" "The Vitales took my grandmother." Maya's blood ran cold. She'd met Nonna Mancini a few times, a sweet woman in her 80s who made incredible tiramisu and pinched Damien's cheeks like he was still a boy. "I'm coming with you," Maya said. "Absolutely not. You need someone thinking clearly. You're too emotional." "Maya, these men are dangerous. And you're walking into a trap. Let me help you." For a moment, Damien looked like he might argue. Then he grabbed her hand, the first time he'd ever touched her beyond professional necessity, and pulled her toward the door. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" Maya nodded, her hand still tingling from his touch. The exchange happened in an abandoned warehouse by the docks. Classic Mafia territory. Damien's men surrounded the perimeter while Maya stayed in the car, watching through tinted windows as Damien approached Marco Vitale. They were too far away for her to hear the conversation, but she could read the body language. Marco smiling smugly, Damien's barely controlled rage, and then Nonna Mancini, being led out by 2 guards. She looked frightened but unharmed. Maya watched as Damien signed something, probably papers transferring territory or money, whatever Marco had demanded. The grandmother was released, immediately moving to Damien's side. It should have ended there. But Marco wasn't satisfied with just winning. He wanted to humiliate Damien in front of his men. Maya saw it happening in slow motion. Marco said something. She couldn't hear what. And Damien's entire body went rigid. Marco's guards laughed. And then Marco made a crucial mistake. He mentioned Maya by name. Even from the car, Maya saw the change in Damien. The cold, calculated control shattered. He moved faster than she'd ever seen, closing the distance between himself and Marco in a heartbeat. His fist connected with Marco's jaw, and then chaos erupted. Gunfire, shouting, Damien's security team surging forward. "Stay in the car," Vincent had told her, but Maya couldn't just sit there while Damien was in danger. She grabbed the first aid kit from the back seat and moved toward the warehouse. She found Damien behind a concrete pillar, blood streaming from a cut on his temple, his suit jacket torn. "I told you to stay in the car," he shouted over the noise. "You're bleeding." Maya pressed gauze to the wound, her hands shaking. Damien grabbed her wrist, his grip gentle despite the violence around them. "Maya, you need to—" He didn't finish the sentence. His eyes went wide, focused on something behind her. Maya turned to see one of Marco's men aiming a gun directly at her. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds but felt like an eternity. Damien pulled Maya against his chest, spinning so his body was between her and the shooter. A gunshot cracked through the air. Damien's body jerked, and Maya felt him go rigid with pain. "No!" Maya screamed as Damien collapsed against her. The shooter went down a second later, taken out by Vincent's team. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell, broken only by Maya's sobbing as she cradled Damien's head in her lap. "Don't you dare die," she whispered fiercely, pressing her hands against the wound in his shoulder. "Damien, stay with me, please." His eyes found hers, and even through the pain, there was something tender in his expression. "Can't have you getting hurt," he managed. "Need you too much." "Ambulance is coming," Vincent said, kneeling beside them. "He'll be okay, Maya. It missed anything vital." But Maya couldn't stop crying, couldn't stop touching Damien's face, his hair, reassuring herself he was alive. "I'm okay," Damien whispered, his hand reaching up to cup her cheek. "I'm okay, Bella." And that's when Maya knew she was completely, irreversibly in love with him. Damien recovered in his private estate, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city that Maya had never visited before. He insisted she stay there too. For her safety, he claimed, since Marco Vitale was still at large, and might target her next. But Maya suspected the real reason was that Damien didn't want her out of his sight. She'd taken a bullet meant for her. That changed things. For 3 days, Maya barely left his side. She read to him when he couldn't sleep, changed his bandages, brought him meals he barely touched. They talked about everything and nothing, his childhood in Sicily, her dreams of traveling the world, the places they'd both go if they could leave this life behind. "Why did you choose this?" Maya asked one evening, sitting in the chair beside his bed. "You're brilliant. You could have done anything." "It was chosen for me," Damien said quietly. "My father was the Don before me. When he died, I was 23. Too young, too soft, according to the other families. I had to prove myself worthy, prove I could be as ruthless as he was." "Are you? Ruthless?" Damien looked at her with those penetrating gray eyes. "I've done terrible things, Maya. Things that would make you run from me if you knew. Try me." So he told her. Not everything. She suspected he was editing the worst parts. But enough. The difficult decisions, the compromises with his conscience, the violence he'd authorized to maintain control and protect his family. When he finished, Maya didn't run. Instead, she took his hand. "You're more than the worst things you've done," she said softly. "How can you say that?" "Because I see all of you, Damien, the good and the bad, and I'm still here." Something broke in his expression. He pulled her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent electricity through her entire body. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "You should be anywhere but here." "Where else would I be?" "Safe, far away from me, living a normal life with a normal man who could give you everything you deserve." What if what I want isn't normal? The air between them crackled with tension. Damien's thumb traced circles on her wrist, and Maya felt her pulse racing. Maya, he said, his voice rough with warning, if you stay, if we cross this line, there's no going back. Maybe I don't want to go back. That's all it took. Damien pulled her onto the bed beside him, his good arm wrapping around her waist as his lips found hers in a kiss that was 3 years of denied want and suppressed longing finally breaking free. Maya melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair, careful of his wounded shoulder. The kiss was desperate and tender all at once, a confession without words. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien pressed his forehead to hers. I love you, he said simply. I've loved you for 2 years. I tried to fight it, tried to keep my distance, but I can't anymore. Not after almost losing you. You love me? Maya's voice broke with emotion. Completely. Terrifyingly. In a way that makes me vulnerable in ways I can't afford to be. His hand cupped her face. But I can't lie about it anymore. You're everything to me, Maya. I love you, too, she whispered. God, I love you so much. They kissed again, softer this time, sealing the confession. The next 6 months were the happiest of Maya's life, and the most dangerous. They kept their relationship secret from everyone except Vincent and a few trusted members of Damien's inner circle. In public, Maya remained his assistant. In private, she was his everything. They'd steal moments together. A kiss in his office after everyone left, dinners at his mansion where they could be themselves, weekends at his private villa upstate where the world couldn't reach them. Damien was a revelation as a lover. Tender and passionate, attentive to her every need, treating her like she was precious beyond measure. He'd bring her coffee in bed, leave love notes hidden in her desk, call her in the middle of meetings just to hear her voice. You're different now, his grandmother observed during one of their Sunday visits. Maya had started accompanying Damien at Nona's insistence. Lighter, happy. Is it that obvious? Damien asked, but he was smiling. You're in love. Nona patted Maya's hand. Good. It's about time someone broke through that stubborn heart of yours. But their happiness existed in a bubble that Maya knew couldn't last forever. The first crack appeared when Isabella Vitale showed up at the office unannounced. She was beautiful, tall, elegant, with the kind of poise that came from generations of wealth and breeding. Everything Maya wasn't. Mr. Mancini, Isabella said, sweeping into Damien's office like she owned it. We need to talk about our arrangement. There is no arrangement, Damien said coldly. My father seems to think differently. Isabella's eyes flicked to Maya, dismissive. In private, please. Maya left, but not before catching the predatory look in Isabella's eyes. This woman saw Damien as a prize to be won, territory to be claimed. The meeting lasted an hour. When Isabella left, she looked smug. When Maya went back into Damien's office, he looked exhausted. What did she want? The same thing everyone wants. An alliance. Power. She's convinced I'll eventually agree to marry her. Damien pulled Maya into his arms. I told her I'm not interested. Your families expect you to marry someone like her. I don't care what they expect. Damien. No. He tilted her chin up, his eyes fierce. I'm not marrying Isabella Vitale or anyone else. I'm in love with you. You're the only future I want. Maya wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe love could be enough. But she knew better. The pressure mounted over the following months. Other families began questioning Damien's refusal to marry. Rumors started circulating about his assistant. Some were kind, most were cruel. Maya heard the whispers, the knowing looks, the judgment from people who saw her as nothing more than a distraction, a phase, someone beneath Damien's station. I'm becoming a liability, she told Damien one night. Don't say that. It's true. Your position is being questioned because of me. My position is fine. For now. But how long before someone uses me against you? Before I become the weakness your enemies exploit? Damien had no answer for that, because they both knew it was true. The breaking point came at a family summit, a gathering of all 5 families to discuss territory and treaties. Damien brought Maya as his assistant, as always, but everyone knew what she really was. Marco Vitale cornered her during a break. You think you're special, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. You're a distraction. Eventually, Damien will realize he needs a real partner. Someone worthy of his name. Someone who can give him the legitimacy you never could. Get away from her! Damien's voice cut through the air like a whip. Marco smiled, just offering some friendly advice. After all, she should know her place. Damien moved so fast Maya barely saw it. One moment Marco was smirking. The next he was slammed against the wall. Damien's forearm pressed against his throat. Touch her, talk to her, even look at her again and I'll end you, Damien snarled. Are we clear? Security pulled them apart before it could escalate, but the damage was done. Damien had publicly claimed Maya, exposing just how much she meant to him, making her the perfect target. 3 days later, the threat came in a letter delivered to Maya's apartment, a place Damien had insisted she leave months ago, but she'd kept for independence. Inside was a single photo, her younger brother Carlos leaving his college campus, completely unaware of the crosshairs superimposed over his head. The message was clear. She's the weakness. Remove her, or we remove what matters to her. Maya stared at the photo with shaking hands. This was her worst fear realized. By loving Damien, she'd painted a target on everyone she cared about. She didn't tell Damien about the letter. Instead, she made a decision. She had to leave. Not just the job, she had to leave his life entirely. Cut all ties. Disappear so completely that hurting her would no longer be worthwhile as leverage against him. Maya spent the next week making arrangements in secret. A new apartment in a different city, a job lined up under a different name, protection for her mother and brother that didn't come from Damien's organization. The hardest part was writing the letter. Damien, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Please don't look for me. Not because I don't love you, but because I love you too much to be the weapon someone uses to destroy you. You were right that first day we met. In your world, weakness gets you killed. I'm your weakness now, and I can't live with that. I can't be the reason you compromise your principles, risk your position, or worse, the reason someone you love gets hurt. You deserve someone who strengthens your position, not weakens it. Someone who can stand beside you in your world without flinching. That's not me. It never was. I'll love you for the rest of my life, but love isn't always enough. Be safe. Be happy. Forget me. Maya. She left the letter on his desk late Friday night when she knew he'd be at a meeting across town. She took one last look at the office that had been her home for 3 years, memorized every detail, and walked out the door. Damien found the letter at midnight. Vincent would later tell her that the sound Damien made when he read it was something between a roar and a sob. Pure anguish from a man who never showed emotion. He tore the office apart looking for clues to where she'd gone. He called her phone 100 times. He sent his men to every place she might be. But Maya had planned well. She'd vanished completely. For 3 months, Damien searched. His organization was in chaos. The cold, controlled boss everyone feared had been replaced by someone desperate and barely holding together. You need to let her go, Vincent finally said. She made her choice. She made the wrong choice. Did she? Look at what loving you cost her. The fear, the danger, the threats. Maybe she's better off without this life. Damien knew Vincent was right. But it didn't stop the ache, the feeling that he'd lost the only thing that truly mattered. Eventually, he stopped searching, forced himself to move on, buried his grief beneath work and duty, but he never forgot her. Maya tried to build a new life. She got a normal job at a consulting firm, rented a small apartment, made friends who knew nothing about her past, dated a few men who were perfectly nice and completely wrong. Because none of them were Damien, she told herself she'd done the right thing, that protecting him and her family was worth the heartbreak, that eventually the pain would fade. It didn't. 6 months after leaving, Maya met someone at a work conference. His name was David, a corporate lawyer from a good family. Steady, reliable, safe. Everything Damien wasn't. David was kind. He made her laugh. He offered a normal, uncomplicated life with no danger, no secrets, no impossible choices. When he proposed after 4 months of dating, Maya said yes. Not because she loved him, not the way she'd loved Damien, but because she was so tired of grieving, tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of loving a man she could never have. Maybe, she thought, settling for safe was better than risking everything for passion. She was wrong. Maya stood in the bridal suite, staring at herself in the mirror. The white dress was beautiful, lace and silk, traditional and proper. The face staring back at her looked like a stranger's. "You look beautiful," her mother said, adjusting the veil. "Thank you, Mama." "Are you sure about this?" Her mother's eyes were concerned. "You don't seem happy." "I'm fine, just nervous." But nervous wasn't the word. Numb was more accurate, resigned. This was the right choice, Maya told herself for the 1,000th time. David was good to her. He'd give her a stable life. She could learn to love him enough, even if every night she still dreamed of gray eyes and dangerous smiles. The church was packed with David's family and friends. Maya's side was smaller. Her mother, her brother, a few colleagues. Everyone else from her old life was gone, including the man she'd left behind. She walked down the aisle on her brother's arm, David smiling at the altar. The priest began the ceremony. Maya heard herself making the appropriate responses, but it felt like she was watching from outside her body. "If anyone has objections to this union," the priest intoned, "speak now, or forever hold your peace." The words hung in the air, and then the church doors slammed open. "I object." That voice, deep, commanding, achingly familiar. Maya spun around, and there he was. Damien Mancini stood in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun, looking like an avenging angel in a charcoal suit. His eyes locked onto hers across the distance, and Maya felt the entire world tilt. "Who is this guy?" someone whispered. Gasps rippled through the crowd. David stepped forward protectively. The priest looked bewildered, but Maya couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at the man she'd spent a year trying to forget. Damien walked down the aisle with measured steps, his gaze never leaving Maya's face. When he reached the altar, he finally looked at David. "I'm sorry to interrupt your day," Damien said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "But I can't let this wedding continue." "You can't just," David started. "Maya." Damien turned back to her, and the raw emotion in his voice made her chest ache. "You left without giving me a choice, without letting me fight for you. I've respected your distance for a year, but I can't do it anymore. Not when you're about to marry someone else." "Damien, you shouldn't be here," Maya whispered. "I know, but I am. Because I love you. Because I've never stopped loving you. Because watching you marry someone else would destroy me more than any bullet or betrayal ever could." The church was dead silent. Everyone staring. "I'm sorry I didn't fight harder when you left," Damien continued. "I'm sorry I let you believe you were my weakness instead of my strength. I'm sorry it took me losing you to realize that nothing, not my position, Not my reputation, not my empire, matters more than you. This is crazy, David interjected. Maya, you don't even know this man, do you? But Maya couldn't lie. Not anymore. I do, she said softly. I know him. Tell me you don't love me, Damien said, stepping closer. Look me in the eyes and tell me you love him more, and I'll leave. I'll walk out that door and never bother you again. But if there's any part of you that still loves me, if there's any chance for us, then don't marry him. Please. Maya looked at David. Kind, safe David who'd offered her everything except the one thing she truly wanted. Then she looked at Damien. Dangerous, complicated Damien, who'd shown her what it meant to be truly, completely loved. I'm sorry, she whispered to David. I can't do this. She lifted the veil from her face and walked past him, past the shocked guests, straight to Damien. When she reached him, Damien cupped her face with both hands, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Are you sure? He asked quietly. I've never been more sure of anything. Damien kissed her then, right there in the church, in front of everyone. It was a promise and a claim all at once, a declaration that she was his and he was hers. Consequences be damned. When they broke apart, chaos erupted. David's family shouting, guests gasping, the priest looking scandalized. But Damien just took Maya's hand and led her up the aisle, out of the church, into the sunlight where a car waited. Where are we going? Maya asked. Anywhere you want. Everywhere. I don't care as long as I'm with you. What about your business? Your responsibilities? I've been making arrangements for the past 6 months. Damien smiled, that rare, genuine smile she'd fallen in love with. Turns out I'm not the only Mancini who can run the family. My cousin Antonio is taking over while I step back. Step back? You? For you? I'd walk away from everything. He kissed her again. I should have done it a year ago. Should have followed you, fought for you, made you understand that you're not my weakness. You're the only thing that makes me strong. Maya laughed, crying and kissing him at the same time. I love you. God, I've missed you. Never again, Damien said fiercely. We're never apart again. Whatever comes, we face it together. 6 months later. Maya and Damien didn't have a conventional happy ending. Then again, nothing about their love story had been conventional. They left the city that day and didn't look back. Damien kept his word about stepping back from the business, handing control to his cousin while maintaining advisory status. It wasn't a complete exit. His connections and reputation still commanded respect, but it was enough to give them the life they'd both dreamed of. They traveled first. Italy, where Damien showed her the village where his grandmother was born. Greece, where they spent lazy days on white sand beaches. Japan, Thailand, Morocco. Everywhere Maya had ever wanted to go, Damien took her. No regrets? Maya asked him one evening in Paris, watching the sunset from their hotel balcony. About leaving? Damien pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her waist. Not a single one. I spent 15 years building an empire I didn't want, trying to live up to a legacy that was never mine. I was surviving, not living. You gave me a reason to actually live. What about everything you gave up? I gave up nothing that mattered. I still have my family, my wealth, enough influence to protect the people I care about. But now I have you too. That's all I need. Maya turned in his arms, studying his face. He looked younger now, the constant tension gone from his shoulders. The gray in his eyes was warmer, softer. He smiled more, that real smile that had once been so rare. I was so afraid, she admitted. Afraid that loving you would destroy both of us. It almost did. But we're stronger than our fear now. He kissed her forehead. No more running. No more hiding. Whatever comes, we face it together. They eventually settled in a villa on the Amalfi coast, far enough from the city to escape the shadows of Damien's past, but close enough that he could handle business when needed. Maya started a consulting firm helping other women escape dangerous situations, using Damien's connections and resources to provide protection and fresh starts. It was meaningful work that channeled everything she'd learned in Damien's world toward helping others. Damien found unexpected fulfillment in legitimate business ventures, restaurants, real estate, investments. Without the constant pressure of the Mafia world, he discovered he was good at building things rather than just controlling them. Nonna Mancini moved in with them, much to everyone's delight. She spent her days tending a garden and teaching Maya how to make traditional Sicilian dishes, while giving Damien endless grief about finally settling down. "When are you giving me great-grandchildren?" she demanded at Sunday dinner. "Nonna," Damien protested, but he was smiling. "We're working on it," Maya said, laughing at Damien's surprised expression. That night, Damien pulled her close in bed, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Were you serious about children?" he asked. "Would that scare you?" "Terrify me, in the best possible way." He kissed her softly. "I want everything with you, Maya. The house, the kids, the boring suburban life. All of it." "Nothing about our life will ever be boring," Maya teased. "Probably not, but it'll be ours." They married quietly 6 months after the wedding crash, just family and close friends on a beach in Sicily. Maya wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair. Damien wore linen pants and a white shirt, barefoot in the sand. This time, no one objected when the priest asked. "I promise to love you in every lifetime," Damien said during their vows, his voice rough with emotion. "To choose you over everything, every single time. To be worthy of the gift you've given me, a chance at happiness I never thought I deserved." "I promise to never run from us again," Maya said, tears streaming down her face. "To trust in our love even when I'm afraid, to be your partner, your equal, your home. In this life and everyone after." When they kissed as husband and wife, the small crowd erupted in applause, but Maya barely heard it, lost in the moment, in Damien, in the future they'd fought so hard to claim. 1 year later, Maya sat on the terrace of their villa, watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean in shades of gold and pink. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, 7 months pregnant with their daughter. Damien emerged from the house carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water. He settled beside her, his hand joining hers on her stomach. "She's kicking," Maya said as their daughter performed acrobatics. "She's strong, like her mother." Damien's voice was full of wonder. "Have you decided on a name?" "I was thinking, Sophia, after your grandmother." Damien's eyes glistened with tears he didn't bother hiding anymore. "She would love that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the day end. In the distance, they could hear Nonna singing in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The scent of basil and tomatoes drifted through the air. "Do you remember that first day?" Maya asked. "When I walked into your office, terrified and desperate?" "I remember thinking you were going to be trouble," Damien said with a smile. "Was I?" "The best kind." He kissed her temple. "You destroyed my carefully ordered world and gave me chaos. You made me feel again when I thought I was dead inside. You saved me, Maya." "We saved each other." "That we did." As darkness fell and stars emerged overhead, they went inside to have dinner with Nonna, who insisted on making them eat seconds, claiming Maya was eating for 2 and Damien was still too thin, despite his protests. Later, lying in bed with Damien's hand protectively cradling her belly, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fear, the pain, the impossible choices. The wedding she'd almost gone through with. The moment Damien had crashed through those church doors and given her the courage to choose love over safety. No regrets? Damien asked, echoing her question from months ago. Maya smiled in the darkness. Not a single one. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Forever. Forever. Maya agreed and kissed him. Outside, the Mediterranean whispered against the cliffs. Inside, they held each other close. Two people who'd found their way through darkness into light, who'd chosen love even when the world told them it was impossible. They'd both walked away from the Mafia boss and his empire. But they'd walked towards something infinitely more valuable. A life built on love, trust, and the unshakable knowledge that together, they could survive anything. And that was the greatest victory of all. And that's the story of how a Mafia boss crashed a wedding for love. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Was it when Damien took the bullet for Maya? When he crashed the wedding? Or that final scene with them building their new life? Hit that like button if you're a sucker for forbidden romance that actually gets a happy ending, and subscribe for more stories like this. I post new romance stories every week. Should I do a sequel about Damien's cousin Antonio taking over the family business? Or do you want to hear the story of how Vincent found his own love? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is fall in love with exactly the right person. See you in the next story.